Just waiting for the message. Okay, so we will now continue our example where we left off yesterday, working on the advanced classes test. So down here, the last thing we did was create a meeting object. Meeting equals new meeting. So we created a meeting object and we were working on the meeting class. We added some code to it. So that's where we're going to pick up today with. And based on the technical troubles we've been having, I'm probably only going to do this for about 15 minutes or so with you guys today. And then we'll kind of look at where we are. Maybe we'll go a little longer than that after the 15. Okay, 15, 20 minutes. So, sorry, I'm just setting a timer for that. Sorry for all these technical troubles. Like I said, I think it's actually a internet outage around St. James. That could be the problem. Nonetheless, let's get back to where we were. So in the meeting class, what I'd like you guys to do is I want you to make an adjustment to the constructor we did yesterday and take out actually that for loop, the enhanced for loop. We're going to put it into a different spot. Okay, but I do want to leave the comment in there that when we created our array of person objects, okay, we set it to be up to our maximum of say 100. And again, that number doesn't really matter. But when you instantiate an array of class objects, it will start the array off with nulls at each spot. Okay, so it's not filled with person objects yet. It's filled with nulls. Okay, so now this meeting object, the idea is to have it be able to put people into the meeting. So we're going to write a method underneath the constructor, public to attend the meeting. And we will pass it a person object, person, as the object that will attend this meeting. So I'd like you to add this method for meeting class, okay? So it's added into the meeting class itself, and it's going to be very short. It's like 3 lines of code. All right, quick pause and an attendance check. Still missing Avery, still missing some students there. Okay. Okay. So back to this attend. So really, this is a pretty simple method, okay? Let me give you a comment of what it does. It has a person, this person, attend the meeting, which means they're going to be added into this array. I'm going to add the person into this array because it's an array of person objects, okay? So this parameter is the person object that's going to attend. So what I do is I go to members, that's the name of my array, at spot count. Oops. Now remember, count is a variable that starts at 0. So that's perfect. It's going to go to spot 0, and that's where I assign the person object. So now it's not a null anymore. Okay, we have added a person to that array slot or that array index. Okay, so that's the first thing we need to do. Okay, but if I call this method again, there's going to be a problem. So let's go to our testing class for a second. We've created a new meeting. Let's take the meeting dot attend, and we'll have one of our person objects attend the meeting. Okay. So now going to have person objects. However, if I do this again, attend. Okay. Now, what other person objects do I have? Well, believe it or not, I actually have lots of person objects because of inheritance, okay? So I'm going to have person objects and all children of the person objects. So one of the child of person is a student. So I'm going to have a student attend the meeting. So a student is a person, so this should be no problem, okay? And that's done through the process of polymorphism. Definition for that in a second. But I want to finish the method. We haven't finished it yet. Since I've now added a person to the meeting, they're now attending. The next time it goes to this array spot, I can't use spot 0 again, or replace the person with the student. And instead, what I want to do is I want to increase my count by 1. So the next time I call this method, it will have advanced that counter to the next slot or the next spot array. I'll actually use the word index here. To the next index in the array. So I'd be able to add a student to my array. I'm going to add a few things. I'm going to now add a number of things to my array. So for example, I can have a teacher attend the meeting. Teacher is a student. I can have a husky attend this meeting. A husky is a student, which is a person, as is a piper. A doctor is a person. A baker. And Mr. Walks is a teacher, which is a person. Okay? So we're seeing all the children of the person class, all objects of that. And I'm also going to add one more thing. I'm going to try to have a null attend this meeting. Which really won't do anything for our method. But if you think about it, this is going to slot 0. This is going to go to slot 1, slot 2, oops, 3, 4, 5, 6. This should go to slot 7, the Mr. Walks object. And it will attempt to put this at slot 8 of my array. Remember, my array goes all the way up to 100 spots. But let's say in here I was adding more and more and more, and I eventually got to slot 100. That would be a problem, because it would try to go to a slot 100 or slot 101, and it would go out of bounds. So I'm going to put a little error check in here. If count is greater than the maximum, I'm going to set the count back to 0. So this is just an error check, right? To reset this back to 0. Error check. I'll reset it back to 0. Okay, so that's going to be my entire attend method. You can see it on the screen right now. That this is how I'm going to have a member person attend my meeting. Okay, by adjusting the encapsulated property that's private, that is an associated array of person objects. That's a lot of vocabulary flying at you guys, right? A lot from that vocabulary list that we've been working on here, right? All of these vocabulary words can be a little overwhelming as you start to kind of process through them, because this is some advanced class material here. All right, a quick pause for an attendance check. I just want to make sure that I don't have anyone marked absent that isn't. Okay, so Jacob was absent and now I'm marking him present. My apologies, Jacob. I understand. I got a phone call from my wife that internet is out in parts of St. James, so my apologies there. Still waiting on Ria to see if she connects, and waiting on Avery. But Jacob, you are now marked present, and I'll just quickly check. Just Avery and yeah, okay. Okay, back to our example. So the next thing we're going to do is I want to again talk about this word right here, polymorphism. It's an important word to understand in the context of what we're doing with it. So the word polymorphism comes from a Greek word poly, like polygon, and morph, which means form or shape. Poly means many, form means shape, so many shapes. So polymorphism isn't just a computer science word. In biology, it means an organism or species that has more than one form. Like, for example, a butterfly, which comes from a moth. In computer science, the common use of polymorphism is when a parent class reference is used to also apply to its child class object. So in this class, we're using the parent class person, and yet we can use child class objects like student and teacher and doctor and baker. This is covered in the 30S course, but you can see here I'm using it in a more advanced way in this example that we're working on right here. Okay, I'm also using some other stuff, which we're going to get to here in a second. Okay, so now that I have this stuff back in the testing class, I need to, and I'll use a word that applies to meetings. I need to hold a meeting, okay? All members, right? Hold a meeting. So I'm going to make a method, meeting.hold. Doesn't exist yet, but I can use the light bulb to create it, even though it's in this other class up here, the meeting class. I'm currently writing code in advanced classes test. It realizes that this method is going to get put in the meeting class. And so when I use the light bulb, it even says that it's going to create it there. And then I can jump right to it. So here's my hold method ready for me to put content in it. Okay. What we're going to work on next, and this will probably be the last thing we're going to work on today for this class. But I want to incorporate some things that we've already done in this unit into this particular example. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with making a variable to keep adding to. For the output, we'll be doing at the end. So we'll be doing an output at the end of this method. Okay. Now we're going to just make a little variable, a string variable, message. At the end of this method, we will output that. We'll output the message. Okay. Okay, and then there'll obviously be stuff going on in between. All right, so let's start with a message. The meeting is about to begin. Okay. If I was to run this right now, that would be the only message that comes out. And you may want to, if you're following along, do this just as a test. So the meeting is about to begin. Okay, that's not the point of this hold method. What we're going to start now with is the enhanced for loop. So I know we deleted it from where we wrote it yesterday in the constructor, and now we're going to bring it back right here. The enhanced for loop through the array. Okay. And the way, again, you should read the enhanced for loop is I'm going to read it as for every member in members. That's the way you want to read this. But let's put the enhanced for loop in. Control space bar, enter. For every member in members. Okay. That's going to be what we're going to do there. Now, so as we go through all the members, we're only going to count the members that are not null. Because a lot of the pieces of that array are not actual members. We're only going to count members, so let me rephrase this, that exist. In other words, they're not nulls in the array. So the array has a bunch of nulls in it. When I've been using this, I put in the first 8 members, 0 through 7. They're inside the array. Everything after that, just sitting as a null up to spot 99 in the array. So spots 0 to 7, that has content. It has actual person objects in there. But spots 8 through 99 are filled with nulls. So what I mean right here is I'm looping through the array, but only if the member, okay, is not equal to null. That's the only thing that matters to me, okay? If it's null, I don't care about it. I will skip over those spots. Remember, member will automatically pull it out as it loops through the array. That's the nature of the enhanced for loop, okay? So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add something to my message. Message plus equals a new line. Okay, I'm going to put a line break in there. Okay, so right now, if I was to run that, we should see a lot of not line breaks. We should see 8 line breaks for where all the people were. Okay, that's not all I'm going to do. So I put in the line break because now I'm going to teach you guys something new, that a new piece of code that you guys can use in your code. And what do I have this mentioned? Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this piece of terminology called the instance of operator. Instance of is a thing that allows you to determine if an object on the left-hand side is an instance of the class on the right-hand side. It returns true or false, so it can basically be used in an if statement. So I'm going to put this into our example, first with a comment explaining what I just said. Okay, so instance of, yes, it's all one word in lowercase, so you should read it as 2 words. Okay, takes a object, an instance, on the left-hand side. For those of you in math, sometimes it's expressed this way, LN, left-hand side, and the class type on the right-hand side. Okay, and is true if the object comes from that class. Okay? That's what I mean by this thing called instance of, and here's how it works. If member instance of a Mr. Walks, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to display I'm going to add to my message plus equals. I'm going to put in a little tab character, then a Mr. Walks, and like a little arrow. So the way this works is this is the object, this is the class. Does this object come from this class? Is the member from the is it an object that came from Mr. Walks? In other words, is member a Mr. Walks object? If it is, this will get added to the message. Then I'm going to copy and paste this if statement multiple times into our example. And I'm going to see if it's a teacher. Is this a teacher object? Is this a Husky object? Is this a Piper object? Is this a high school object? Is this a student object? this a doctor? Is this a baker? And one final one. Is this a person? So I'm going to use instance of multiple times here to keep checking. Is this member an instance of a Mr. Walks? Is it a teacher? Is it a husky? Now, your first thoughts might be that this should be a else if statement, not just an if statement, series of ifs, but not the way I want to use it. I want to use it as a series of ifs, pardon me. Now I'm going to add one last thing to the message, just that with a little tab character, that this person is attending the meeting. They're attending. Okay. So I have that in there, and then I have one more line of code after the loop. I'm going to get data from our static variable. Just as a reminder about what static variable is, or static, and actually let me put it this way, static, which is shared property student. It means it's a variable in that student class. And I'm gonna, why can't I spell from? I'm going to attach this to our message as well. Message plus equals a new line with student dot total students present. So remember, this is a reminder about what a static variable is, a static property. So here is the hold method. I will be putting this on GitHub, but I want to run this to show you how this is going to work when we call this method. Before I run it, let's imagine we're the code. We're going through this array. We have this string variable that we're going to keep adding text to, right? So right now it starts with this. This for loop automatically loops through the entire members array. It keeps pulling out an object called member, pulls it out automatically. So the enhanced for loop knows automatically how to go from the start to the end. I check to make sure the member is not a null, because there is going to be a lot of nulls in that array. I add a line break, and then I use instance of to see, is it an instance of these different class objects? And then I attach that to the message, and I attach a little more. Let's see how it looks. Okay, so here's what got outputted. The meeting is about to begin. It read a person is attending. A student person is attending. A teacher person is attending. A Husky high school student person is attending. Let's just focus on this one for a sec. Why did it do this output right here? So that was on the fourth line down. So it would be at slot 3 of the array, right? Slot 0, 1, 2, 3. Let's go back to our testing class. 0, 1, 2, 3. So right here when it adds a Husky, that's what it is. It is a Husky. But why is it that it, well, think about how it goes through this. Is a Husky an instance of a Mr. Walks? No, it's not. Is it a member of a teacher? No, it's not. Is it a Husky? Obviously, yes, it is. Is it a Piper? No, it's not. Is it a high school? Well, yes, a Husky is a high school. So it would also pass this test. Is it a student? Well, a Husky is a high school and a high school is a student. So yes, it passes this test. But it's not a doctor and it's not a baker, but it is in fact a person. So it does pass this test, and this test. It passes all 4 of those tests, which is why in output, it's showing it's a person, it's a student, high school, and it's a Husky, okay? So it's a way to show you how this thing called instance of works. It's a little bit wild, but it does allow that. All right. I am now going to stop the recording.